Welcome, YouTubers. This is News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa, an expert on nothing, which makes me fully qualified to speak about everything. Today is September 22nd. This is episode 132. I do not have anything written down today. This is going to be 30 to 40 minutes of some ranting. If I switch to my favorite page here. There we go. We'll be speaking today a lot of the Charley Kirk Memorial, a lot of the tributes given to Charley Kirk, and how the media is reacting to that. Now, it was a great memorial. I liked everyone that spoke there. J.D. Vance gave a extremely powerful speech. He is not stepping out of the shadows of the president. The president is the president, and J.D. Vance absolutely, at this point in time, is totally acceptable with his position there. Elon Musk and Trump speaking candidly with one another off to the side. It's a big tell, folks. The left, and when I say left, I mean the Democrats in power, and they are the left. Have no mistake about that. Have none. They are the left. They were speaking on how Trump's speech was very divisive, and he wasn't helping the situation of rhetoric. Let's use what they're calling, when Republicans speak, it's rhetoric. So, and Trump said, that Charley Kirk, forgave everyone. And Trump turned around and he goes, that's where I disagreed with him. I dislike my opponents and I wish them nothing well. That's not exactly what he said, but exactly what he meant. And if you were the president who was being railroaded by the political left, and they were trying to put him in jail. Yeah, I can understand him saying that, I dislike them, and I wish them nothing good. All right, I can get there. The difference is that when the Democrats were saying stuff, and the media just forgets all that, and they don't do it. And it is harder and harder to find that with Google AI because it is being filtered. And there are a lot of AI programs out there that filter it. And it's getting very difficult to find exactly what you're looking for because it generalizes everything. And then you have to start digging deeper and deeper, but it won't let you. Now, you can remember the Democrats all screaming, Trump must be stopped. By any means, the Republicans have to be halted. This is, by any means. Schumer. And Schumer is still saying, the most ridiculous comments. Like I said in another podcast, 131, these guys are just clinging onto whatever is floating in their cesspool to stay above and not be drawn down into their own muck. The Democratic Party today is disgusting. It's violent. It has no moral compass. You have a political system and of the Democrats where I understand, and this goes for, Republicans too. They say things to voters to get them to vote for them. And they, Harris would say one thing at one rally and then say something totally opposite at another rally. The contradictions were amazing, but the news never showed it. They just showed little segments, just like they did with Joe Biden. The difference with the Democrats and their handling of trying to be relevant is they're bringing nothing to the table. And they just bring, Epstein or, Trump is doing this and he's against democracy. And that's the furthest from the truth. He's using the courts. He's using our laws. He used our laws. And won. And the Democrats hated that. The Democrats come out and outright lie to us. And not only to us, but to their own base. You had now Harris's book out there saying, how she questioned, should Joe be running? Yet, she got up there and collected billions on how great Joe Biden was and how sound he was and how, he could handle a second term. You have Shapiro going out there now saying, well, I had to go into communities where these people hadn't even gone to try to get votes for Harris, knowing that Harris was an outright liar to their own people. And this is the problem. The Democrats can't be trusted. President Trump, since the day he lost his election, said exactly what he wanted to do if reelected. He didn't change his tune. He didn't change his course. He didn't change his language. What you see is what you got. And that resonated with not only the party, but with a lot of moderate Democrats. Charley Kirk brought a lot of young people into the fold. And it's my feeling that Trump won easily because he had so many young voters coming on board. And that was because of Charley Kirk. Charley Kirk is being portrayed by the left, by the Democrats, as being a racist, a homophobe. You know, everything under the sun, which is, of course, not true. He wasn't a homophobe. He wasn't a racist. But if the Democrats couldn't use that as a means to attack him, what could they say about him? What could they do? They would have absolutely nothing. So they went to their old playbook, where, oh, if you think being gay is, or you're a homophobe. No, you're not a homophobe. It's just wrong. I'm not afraid of you. You know, it's just wrong. If you're transgender, I'm not afraid of you. I won't run and scream away from you if, you know, but I will tell you, I think your lifestyle choice there is not normal. And their argument, well, you tell me what normal is. Well, I will. And so will a lot of people who believe in the Bible, who believe in the Torah, who believe in the scriptures of Islam. Will say that this is what we believe in. Now, you could take argument with that, but that is a person's belief. Now, you know, you can go and say, well, Islam, you know, will kill homosexuals or gay people or, you know, transgender. And in some of the Islamic world, that is true. But in many parts, it's outlawed. You will be arrested because you are mentally immoral. And under Sharia law, you know, you could be dealt with. And that's Sharia law. That is the law that these people live under. That is their law. Now, in Judaism, you don't have that. And in the Christian faith, you don't have that. You don't, you know, we don't have, or I wouldn't say we didn't have inclusion of those people. And Charley Kirk was against that exclusion. You know, God will love you if you have a mental problem. God will love you if you have cancer. Both are an illness. God doesn't turn away from you. Jesus doesn't turn away from you, and neither should the faith. That was his. How more peaceful. But you know who was also like that? Was Mahatma Gandhi. And he too was murdered. Who else was like that? who was murdered. Take a look. And the Democrats who, moderate Democrats in power, of course, are against violence. They don't want that. That is not what they're looking for. But you have the fringe element that has taken root in the Democratic Party that calls for violence. The ends justify the means. And you could say, well, look at the white supremacists. Well, they're not part of the Republican. They might vote Republican, but they're not part of the everyday makeup of the Republican Party. Whereas the leftists and extremists are part of the everyday makeup of the Democratic Party. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that statement. It's a true statement. I think, and I said this the day after Charley Kirk's assassination, that this is a turning point, a watershed. Those were my exact words before I heard anyone else say it. That the American people are going to go into that voting booth and are going to decimate the Democrats. The Democrats can say, oh, look, we're winning over here. We had a special election over here. Well, those were in basically blue strongholds. You didn't gain anything. You didn't lose anything. There was some gain by the Democrats in the House of Representatives, but that won't be long-lived. And it won't be enough to change the majority vote. My prediction of 2026, we'll see a clear majority win in the House of Representatives and a clear majority win in the Senate. I think the GOP is going to use the actions of the Democrats against them. I will say that 90% of the political ads that are going to come out is going to show the violence of the Democrats. We'll have Democratic leaders out there on the news, taken from the news. No justice, no peace. Calling for action by any means against the Republicans. About those that don't agree with the Democrats or the left. It will show President Trump being shot. It will show the podium bloodstained of Charley Kirk. And it will resonate with the voters. And there'll be a lot of Democrats. That is rhetoric. That's dangerous. That's this. That's that. Well, is it also not the truth? Well, we didn't agree with all that, and we were horrified by it, but you kept calling for it. And then when it happened, well, that's not what we meant. You wanted plausible deniability, you can't get it. We're not going to give it to you. We're not going to be gentlemen and gentlewomen about this any longer. We're calling you out. We are calling you out. We don't think gays should be treated any differently than any other citizen, or a transgender any differently, or a cross-dresser any differently than you would treat or give any other of our citizens rights. Mentally ill people have rights. Normal people have rights. No one's trying to take them away from you, but you don't pick up super rights. You don't get rights that no one else gets. They struck down affirmative action, so then what did they try to do? DEI. It wasn't a law. They just protested in front of companies and said, if you don't do this, we're going to hurt you financially. And companies go, oh, we don't want that. And then you find out that these weren't everyday, ordinary people out there protesting. These were being paid by single groups. These protesters were being paid to do that. So they're no longer protesters. They're unregistered lobbyists. For who? And maybe a foreign country. Or persons that are not American citizens. So they're doing the work of a foreign agent. Why aren't we looking at that? Why aren't we looking at these companies? Who's funding those companies? How are they getting their money to go out there and hire people? I think that is a legitimate question. We should be able to know that. So I have major problems with the Democrats. I have some major problems with some Republicans. That are, using Epstein as a springboard to stay relevant with their voters, and trying to get some Democratic voters to cross over instead of saying, hey, Trump wanted to release them and the court said, no, you can't release these. So the stuff that has been released has been released. And I say it, is there more in that Epstein file? You bet there is. Is it against Trump? No. Everything that we know about Trump and Epstein is out there. There is nothing new there. Or somehow, some way, it would have been released. It would have been released. So, but like I said with it, and I say that in a lot of my podcasts, if you look, the information that is in the Epstein file that has been pushed to the side because it wasn't relevant to the Maxwell case. It has to be relevant. They just didn't hand over every piece of paper. They had to hand over papers that were relevant to the charges against Maxwell. That's it. That's all discovery they need to do. And then if there's something else in there that they want, then they have to go to the court and go, this is why we want it, Your Honor. Because it is germane to the case, and this person might know something that knows something, and the courts could then go, yeah, no. That's called fishing. You can't go fishing. But the courts might also say, yeah, okay, I could see the dots connecting. Any information on person X, they can get. So, when the government says all the files have been released, that's not a true statement. All the files that were needed to be released for the defense of Ghislaine Maxwell were met. Now, if in any of those paperworks that were not given, there was information that would have shown Maxwell's innocence and it was not given, that's a problem. But if there was information in there that showed that it was a wider network, no. Unless they could connect the dots on people. And the argument would be, well, how do I know there's even dots there if it's not given to me for me to figure out? It's a fair question. It's a fair question. But most of the people on that list now are just people that did business with him. Remember, this guy was a procurer. And not just of young, legally aged women who had gone to the island and other places freely, willfully, and being properly compensated for. But just doing business with him. Having people that could get together, and normally they wouldn't meet, but he gets them together. He was a procurer. And he was good at it, got paid well. Now, he also gave information to Mossad. He gave information to the CIA. If he did any of his dealings inside the United States, he gave that information to the FBI. I'm sure he gave it to the Soviet police, or the Russian police, or the Chinese. Hey, how much is it worth to you? But I don't think that happened often in that sense, only because I left MI5 and MI6 out. Sorry, fellas. But if that word got out, who would do business with him? So, sex sells. And ice cream always tastes great, but even tastes better for a lot of people with sprinkles, whipped cream, and a cherry on top. That's life, baby. You don't like it, you can pretend it doesn't happen then. All right, that's 30 minutes of me ranting here. But my main thing is the speech is given at the memorial, and it was a celebration of Charley Kirk's life. It might have struck some people as, it was almost like a party like atmosphere. But if you've never been to a celebration of life, you wouldn't understand that you know, making jokes and laughing and being serious, but celebrating, Charlie Kirk's life, um, and acknowledging that he was murdered by a very bad person, allegedly they caught. And when the facts come out, they'll come out. Did he act alone? Was this part of a group? Who was he contacting? Who was in contact with him? Um, you know, I think those are all questions that anyone wants answered. So um, I can't see people being disturbed by that. I don't. I can see people being disturbed that they think that there should have been a very somber moment, and uh, but for Charlie Kirk, this was a celebration of his life and the things that he believed in, which wasn't. We all have Judeo-Christian values here. It's what we were founded on. And we celebrate life, and we celebrate the lives of people that pass. That's what we do. You could be sad and you could be upset. I think the telling moment is when Charlie Kirk's wife said, "I forgive the shooter because that is my faith." And it's hard for the Democrats to say that these people are hateful. In 2 words, she disarmed the progressives, the anarchists, the liberals, and the Democrats. 2 words. I forgive. Very powerful words. And I think that the opportunity, and it's not going to be lost on the GOP. I'm not saying that I would, I'm all in on using that event as a springboard. But I think using the facts as a springboard and as a warning that this is what these people want. And the Republicans are about dialogue, where if the Democrats don't have their way, they're about violence. And you go, oh, look at, January 6th. None of those protesters shot anyone. Did it get out of hand? Sure did. Were they warned that it was going to get out of hand? Yes, they were. And the people that should have been corralled by the police and Capitol Police and by law enforcement, the people in power said, no, we're not going to do anything about that. Capitol Police held doors open. Yeah. What happened January 6th cannot, and if the Democrats dare use that as an example, that will be game on for the Republicans. But you know the Democrats have already gone there with it. This is game on. And there will be no let up. The money that's going to be contributed to the GOP National Fund is going to supersede anything we have seen before. And the Democrats are going to say they bought their way into. Well, I'm not going to say I disagree with that, but you allowed it to happen. You started the fire that burnt your own home down, and then you're crying out there. You started the fire, Democrats, that burned your home down. No getting away from that. So the Charley Kirk Memorial, which will live on well past 2028, believe me. This just ain't going to stop in 2026. This is just not going to stop. The hate from the left that we saw with Kimmel I think ABC's in a boatload of problems because when this assassination took place, they should have gone to all their late night people and said, this is the way you're going to handle it. There's not going to be a joke in there. Find another topic. You cannot go there. If you want to make a, tribute, if you want to say, hey, this was wrong, I feel so bad for their family, for that, this isn't what we're about, folks. But it's hard for them to do that. It's hard for them to come back from where they've been to. Where if we're going to beat you as Republicans, we're doing it in the voting booth, not in the streets. That will be the theme. That will be the mantra. That will carry wins in blue states. By killing Charley Kirk. The red will be the blood. And the Democrats know this. They know they're in trouble, that they're trying to find a wiggle room around this. But they have their Schumers. They have their AOCs. They have their Warrens. They have their Pelosi's. They have their Greens. They have their Sharptons. You have Schumer saying things. Absolutely crazy stuff. You have Jeffries trying to contain it. Nope. You've gone past the fishing point. And now you're just in the countdown mode. And there's no stopping it. Like I said, Democrats, you lit the fire that burnt your own home down. Trump is going to turn the tables on you guys. And you'll be screaming, Epstein, Epstein, and people are going to go, you know, that's not relevant to what's going on. And was never relevant to what's going on. Knowing if Jeffrey Epstein hosted Democrats or hosted Republicans or liberals or whatever, not going to change the price of gasoline or the cost of eggs. It's great for tabloid news. Sex sells. Always has, always will. So, I think that the best bet for liberals, progressives, anarchists, and Democrats is basically say nothing. But saying nothing can also speak volumes. And this is the problem that the Democrats now face. Violence. Political violence. And moderate Democrats, you have to stand up. You have to say, we can't have this. And do you know what only moderate Democrat has been saying that for 2.5 years? John Fetterman. The guy that had a stroke. The guy that even I had spoken out against. And I was worried about his fitness to run. Could he do it? Is he mentally there? And my conclusion was that every Republican and every Democrat should have a stroke like he had. Because he's the only guy that's making sense. And I don't agree with everything Fetterman says. I don't disagree with what he says either. And I don't agree. We're going to have our differences. But man, he makes a lot of sense. And even for the stuff that he believes in, then I got, you know what? Say that again to me and let me look up the facts. And you go, all right, there's meat on that bone. I can get there. I don't know if it means exactly what you want it to mean, but it's there. You're being truthful and being honest. They're far and few between. Shapiro, he's tainted now. He's tainted. Beto O'Rourke never stood a chance. And Gavin Newsom, no. He, he'll try to portray himself as Slick Willie, and it won't work. There's just too much. He's got too much baggage. So they're going to have to start looking for a new Democrat. The Republicans are going to be with Vance. And just so you know, and I made this prediction way back in November, that if there is an opening on the Supreme Court, guess who that's going to be, folks? Theodore Cruz. And and Cruz did speak out that the FCC chairman going that way and saying what he was saying was not a good look. But what he was doing was shooting across the bow, saying, "Hey guys, right now I'm looking at ABC, but I could be looking at NBC and CBS and these other ones next." So, was it a threat against ABC? No. Saying I'm going to apply the rules of the FCC is not a threat. So, you understand that. The president didn't go to the FCC and say, shut them down. He wished he could, and he says, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. But you know what I'll do? I'll go to the advertisers. And I'll go to the broadcasters that are friendly towards me, not bowing or taking a knee. Like the Democrat, they had to take a knee. Screw you. They did the right thing. And we'll hurt you in the pocketbook. And guess what? They suspended Kimmel. Now, Colbert was a whole different story. Colbert was, that show has been losing money for years. And not that Colbert did not make CBS a ton of money. He made CBS a ton of money. But even a star burns out after a while. And his star was burning out. He wasn't staying relevant to a new base. He kept his old base. He kept, people were very loyal to him on his viewership. And he got good eyeballs, not in the real sense of good eyeballs, but it didn't translate to money. So, Kimmel made ABC in his day a lot of money. And then, I still say, Kimmel was, when they go, well, we're losing money with Kimmel, that maybe one part of the company is losing money, but the other one is making money hand over fist. So, that might not be so accurate. But take a look at what can happen. Does it affect Disney? Does it affect ESPN? Does it affect this? Does it affect that? And it has a ripple effect down the line, and they go, making $80 or $90 million on his show, on a company that takes in, the type of money we do. Is it worth taking the risk? And it's a risk assessment. And they go, no. No, let's put them on ice for a while and see what happens. And in Colbert's case, the company just said, "Hey, listen, we're telling you now we're not interested in renewing your contract." And must have known this, and anyone at CBS was knowing that this guy's days were coming to an end eventually. They all do. And it ends. And those shows, as I stated yesterday, didn't have lead-ins. It wasn't like I'll watch Jimmy Kimmel and then I'll watch the next show. No, that was the end. That was killing time from 11:37 Eastern Standard to whatever. And historically, the stations had shows in there that they could produce, and also sell to the stations. I think with the advent of the internet, YouTube, Apple TV, all of these, all of the means for you to get information, news, and programming other than going to the big three or the big four. Fox jumped on that at the end and didn't have to make that big of a technology change. Whereas ABC, NBC, and CBS, yeah, you had to make a technology change and jump over the old fogies that, were saying that, no, this is television, this is how we do it. This is what always worked. And that takes a while. So, but when you go from Tiffany's and you go, well, now I got to be Woolworths, something's got to give. And it had. All right, we're at 53 minutes of airtime here. I'm going to call it quits and sum it all up. If the Democrats didn't have racism and being a homophobe to try to rally their people around an imaginary subject against the Republicans, they'd have to say, we got nothing. That's what we got. So we have to paint them as all being homophobes, all being racists, when, of course, that's not the truth, because they have nothing. They have no solution. They have nothing. They have nothing. And you could just see their morally bankrupt comments about Charley Kirk and the school shooting at the church, and school shootings of others that are predominantly by one group of people. Oh no, it's not trans. Sorry, you thought that's what I was getting to? LGBTQ? No. Mentally ill people. And with that, I'm going to say catch you later. I'm going to put the show up real quick. Just a couple little highlight notes in there. Let you people sort it out. If you're not a member of my channel, please subscribe. If you hate me, leave a message. If you agree with me, leave a message. if you go, yeah, you were right up until this point, leave that message. You go right on my channel and leave a message. It's going to be there for you. Do it. Now, as I always say, give to a charity. If you're capable of doing it, please do it. Doesn't have to be a lot. Make sure it's a real charity. Don't become a victim trying to be a nice person and help a victim. Make sure it's a real charity. You go to them, they shouldn't come to you. Give to a food bank. When you go with your couple of cans, that's all you need to bring is 3 or 4 cans. Just make sure the food's not expired. They cannot take expired food. And then when you're there, ask them, hey, okay, what is it, the one thing that you really need here a lot of? Is it canned food? Is it packaged food? Is it paper products? Is it women's products? Is it toilet paper? Socks, underwear? What is it that you guys can really use here? And the next time you bring that. Or if they go, hey, if you got shoes that you're no longer wearing and they're good, sitting in your closet, you're never going to wear them again. Suit jacket, you're never going to wear them again. Pass them on over. And yes, you can give it to Goodwill and they sell it and do that, but I'd rather give it to an organization like, a church group or a synagogue or a mosque or something along those ways, where I know it's getting out super locally. All right. Say a prayer. Prayer does work, regardless of what you hear the Democrats saying. Prayer does work. And with that, I'm going to say good night, and I'll have this show up on my YouTube channel shortly. The live feed's been taking, 20 hours for them to process. Not sure why. I'm probably doing something wrong. So, with that, I say good night as I fade to